Vincent Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Chicago penthouse, watching the city lights blink like distant stars. At 37 years old, he had conquered the tech world with his revolutionary software company, Sterling Innovations. Forbes had just named him one of the youngest self-made billionaires in America. Yet, as he stared at his reflection in the glass, he saw only a stranger wearing an expensive suit. His days followed the same pattern. Wake at 5, review market reports, attend back-to-back meetings, close deals worth millions, return to an empty penthouse. He had everything money could buy, yet nothing that truly mattered. His therapist had once suggested he was running from something, but Vincent dismissed it. Successful people did not run. They conquered. The woman who needed everything. Natalia Santos moved through the penthouse like a whisper, her presence barely noticeable. At 24, she had learned to make herself invisible. It was a survival skill she had perfected over 2 years of working for wealthy families in Chicago. The agency had told her that Vincent Sterling was the perfect employer. He was rarely home, never complained, and paid generously. Natalia sent most of her earnings back to her family in Honduras. Her younger sister needed surgery for her leg, her mother worked 3 jobs but still struggled with rent, and her brother dreamed of attending university. Every dollar Natalia saved was a step closer to bringing them to America, to safety, to a better life. She had her own small room behind the kitchen, a space she had made cozy with photos of her family and a small plant on the windowsill. It was her sanctuary, the only place where she could breathe freely and be herself. The night everything changed. That Tuesday evening, Vincent returned home earlier than usual. A business dinner had been canceled, and he found himself walking into his penthouse at 8 o'clock instead of midnight. The migraine that had been building all day pulsed behind his eyes with increasing intensity. He loosened his tie and headed straight for the medicine cabinet in the guest bathroom. The lights in the hallway flickered, then died completely. Vincent cursed under his breath. The building superintendent had mentioned something about electrical work, but he had not been paying attention. Now he stood in darkness, his head throbbing, trying to remember where the circuit breaker was located. He recalled it was near the staff quarters. He had never ventured to that part of the penthouse before. That area belonged to Natalia, the quiet housekeeper whose name he barely remembered to use. He knew she was efficient and respectful. That was all he needed to know. Vincent moved down the corridor using his phone's flashlight to guide him. A soft glow emanated from a partially open door at the end of the hall. He pushed it open, expecting to find the electrical panel. Instead, time stopped. The moment that changed everything. Natalia stood in the center of her small room, her back to the door. She had just finished her shower and was changing into her nightclothes. Her uniform lay neatly folded on the bed, and the warm lamplight cast shadows across her bare shoulders. She hummed a melody from her childhood, a song her grandmother used to sing about mountains and home. Vincent froze. His breath caught in his throat. For 3 heartbeats, he could not move, could not speak, could not look away. Then Natalia sensed his presence. She turned, and their eyes met. The look on her face shattered something inside him. It was not anger or embarrassment. It was pure terror. The kind of fear that comes from being completely powerless, from knowing that your entire life depends on the mercy of someone who holds all the cards. Her hands flew to clutch the cotton shirt against her chest. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Please, Mr. Sterling, I am so sorry. I did not hear you come in." The apology. That meant nothing. Vincent stumbled backward, his words tangling. "No, I am sorry. This was wrong. I should have knocked. I did not mean to." But his apology felt hollow. He was the one who had intruded, yet she was the one apologizing, begging for forgiveness. The power imbalance between them had never been so clear, so ugly, so undeniable. He stepped back and closed the door softly, his hand shaking on the handle. The hallway felt colder now, the silence heavier. He stood there for a long moment, listening to the sound of his own racing heart. Vincent walked back to his bedroom, but the image followed him like a shadow. Not desire, but shame consumed him. He had seen her vulnerability, her defenselessness, and it forced him to see himself clearly for the first time in years. The sleepless night Vincent sat in his dark living room, the city lights casting long shadows across the marble floor. He poured himself a drink but could not bring himself to taste it. His hands trembled slightly as he set the glass down. He thought about the girl living quietly in the small room down the hallway, earning in a month what he spent on a single business lunch. She would not tell anyone about what happened. He knew that instinctively. People like Natalia endured in silence because survival required it. Complaints were luxuries they could not afford. The migraine had disappeared, replaced by a different kind of pain, one that medicine could not touch. Vincent ran his hands through his hair and realized he had not spoken gently to another human being in months, perhaps years. The morning after. When dawn broke over Chicago, Vincent had not slept. He heard Natalia moving quietly through the penthouse at 6 in the morning, performing her duties as if nothing had happened. Her footsteps were even softer than usual, as if she were trying to disappear completely. He wanted to apologize properly, to explain, to somehow undo the damage, but every option felt inadequate. Words seemed meaningless against what had happened. So he said nothing, and the silence between them grew heavier with each passing hour. Vincent Sterling, the man who had built an empire on perfect execution and flawless strategy, had no idea how to fix the one thing that truly mattered. He had accidentally witnessed not just a private moment, but the vast distance between their worlds, and that distance felt impossible to cross. Natalia, meanwhile, moved through her day with practiced efficiency, hiding the fear that coiled in her stomach. She wondered if today would be her last day in this job, if the envelope with her final paycheck would be waiting on the kitchen counter. She prayed silently in Spanish, asking for mercy she was not sure she deserved. Two people, separated by wealth and circumstance, now bound by a moment of accidental intimacy that neither knew how to navigate. The day stretched ahead of them, long and uncertain, while Chicago hummed indifferently outside the windows of the glass tower. 3 days passed since the incident, and Vincent Sterling discovered that guilt was a relentless companion. It followed him into board meetings where he struggled to focus on quarterly reports. It sat beside him during conference calls where his mind drifted mid-sentence. His assistant noticed his distraction but said nothing. Vincent Sterling never made mistakes, so this had to be temporary, but it was not temporary. Every morning he heard Natalia's quiet footsteps in the hallway and felt his chest tighten. She had become even more invisible than before, timing her work around his schedule so their paths never crossed. When they occasionally occupied the same space, she would lower her gaze, murmur a polite greeting, and disappear like smoke. The avoidance tortured him more than confrontation would have. He wanted to speak, to apologize properly, to somehow restore her dignity, but the words remained trapped behind walls he had spent decades building. Vincent Sterling did not do emotions. He did efficiency, strategy, results. Yet none of those skills helped him now. The girl who carried the world, Natalia, moved through each day carrying an invisible weight that grew heavier with time. She woke before dawn to clean the penthouse, then returned to her tiny room to video call her family in Honduras. Her mother's face on the screen always showed exhaustion hidden behind a brave smile. "How is Chicago treating you, mija?" Her mother would ask in Spanish, her voice warm despite the distance. "It is good, Mama." "Very good," Natalia would lie, forcing brightness into her tone. She could not tell her mother about the fear that kept her awake at night, about the moment that had shattered her sense of safety. Her family depended on her. Fear was a luxury she could not afford. Her younger sister, Carmen, needed another surgery. The doctors in Tegucigalpa had said it would help her walk better, give her a chance at a normal life. Natalia had been saving every extra dollar for months. She calculated constantly in her head. 3 more months of work would cover the surgery. 6 more months would bring enough for her brother's university fees. Every number was a promise. Every dollar was hope. Losing this job would destroy everything she had been building for 2 years. So she worked harder, cleaned more thoroughly, and made herself smaller. The observation. Vincent began noticing details he had never seen before. The way Natalia arranged fresh flowers in the living room, always placing the white lilies slightly to the left because the morning light hit them better there. The way she hummed while working, soft melodies in Spanish that drifted through the penthouse like prayers. The way her hands moved with careful precision, as if order could protect her from chaos. He noticed the calluses on her fingers, the shadows under her eyes, the way she flinched slightly whenever he entered a room unexpectedly. These observations disturbed him because they made her real, not just a function of his household, but a person with a story he had never bothered to learn. One evening, Vincent found himself searching her name in the employee files. Natalia Santos, age 24, from Honduras. Emergency contact listed as Alma Santos, mother. He stared at the sparse information, realizing how little he knew about someone who lived in his home. He closed the file quickly, feeling like an intruder once again. But the questions remained. What dreams did she carry? What fears shaped her silence? What had she left behind in Honduras? The broken coupe happened on a Thursday afternoon. Vincent was working from home, reviewing contracts in his office when he heard a sharp crash from the kitchen. He stood quickly and walked toward the sound. Natalia was on her knees, gathering pieces of a shattered coffee cup. Her hands were shaking so badly that she kept dropping the fragments. When she saw him standing in the doorway, her face went pale. "I am so sorry, Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice breaking. "I will replace it. I will pay for it. Please, I am so sorry, the cup was nothing." He had a dozen identical ones. But watching her panic over something so small made him realize how much power he held over her life. One word from him could end her employment. One complaint could destroy months of saving. "Natalia," he said softly, crouching down beside her. "Stop. It is just a cup." She looked at him with wide eyes, as if kindness were more frightening than anger. He reached out carefully and took the sharp fragments from her trembling hands. "Are you hurt?" he asked, examining her fingers for cuts. "No, sir. I am fine," she whispered, but her voice betrayed her. She was not fine. She had not been fine since that night. The first real conversation. Vincent stood and extended his hand to help her up. Natalia hesitated before taking it, her touch light and brief. They stood in the kitchen, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the marble counters. "You do not need to be afraid of me," Vincent said quietly. The words felt inadequate, but they were true. Natalia lowered her gaze. "I am not afraid, Mr. Sterling." "Yes, you are, and I understand why." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "What happened the other night should never have happened. I violated your privacy, and I have been trying to find the right way to apologize. But there is no right way, is there? I can only tell you that I am sorry, truly sorry." The apology hung in the air between them. Natalia's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. For so long she had expected dismissal or worse. She had never expected this. "You do not owe me an apology, sir," she said softly. "It was an accident, maybe, but the fear it caused you was not an accident. That fear is still here, every time you see me. I cannot undo what happened, but I want you to feel safe in your own home." The phrase caught them both off guard. Your own home. The small room down the hallway had never felt like home to Natalia. It was temporary shelter, a means to an end. But hearing Vincent call it her home shifted something in the air. The crack in the wall. "Why are you being kind now?" Natalia asked suddenly, surprising herself with her boldness. "You have never spoken to me like this before." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. "Because I have never truly seen you before, and now that I have, I cannot unsee you. I cannot pretend you are invisible anymore." The honesty in his words unsettled them both. Natalia had spent 2 years perfecting her invisibility. It had kept her safe, kept her employed. But safety and dignity were not the same thing, and she was tired of choosing between them. "I have a family," she said quietly, her voice gaining strength. "My mother, my sister, my brother, they depend on the money I send home. My sister needs surgery. My brother wants to go to university. Everything I do here, every hour I work, it is for them. That night when you saw me, I was not afraid because of what you saw. I was afraid because I thought I would lose this job. And if I lose this job, I lose everything." Vincent felt the words land like stones in his chest. He had been thinking about dignity and privacy, but Natalia had been thinking about survival. Their worlds operated on completely different principles. "You will not lose your job," he said firmly. "Not because of that night. Not because of a broken cup. Not unless you choose to leave." The understanding Natalia searched his face for deception but found none. For the first time since that terrible night, she allowed herself to breathe fully. The tension in her shoulders loosened slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling," she said, and this time the gratitude was real. "Vincent," he corrected gently. "You can call me Vincent," she shook her head. "That would not be appropriate, sir." "Neither is treating you like furniture," he replied. "I have spent years building walls around myself, Natalia. I thought it made me stronger, but it only made me empty. You deserve better than to be ignored in your own home." The conversation ended there, but something fundamental had shifted. As Natalia returned to her work and Vincent to his office, both carried a new awareness. The wall between their worlds had developed a crack, and through it, they could finally see each other as human beings. That night, Vincent sat in his living room and thought about everything Natalia had said. Her family, her sister's surgery, her brother's dreams. He had the power to change all of that with a single phone call, a single check. But he knew that charity without understanding was just another form of control. Natalia, in her small room, wrote in her journal as she did every night. But tonight, instead of writing about fear, she wrote about a strange moment of connection, about an apology she had never expected to receive, about kindness that felt dangerous because it made her hope. Two people, still separated by wealth and circumstance, but no longer strangers. The distance between them remained vast, but for the first time it felt crossable. 2 weeks after their conversation in the kitchen, the penthouse felt different. The silence that had once been cold and isolating now held a strange warmth. Vincent found himself arriving home earlier, not rushing to his office, but lingering in shared spaces. Natalia no longer vanished the moment he appeared. They existed in the same rooms without tension, like two people learning a new language together. Vincent started leaving notes. "Small things at first? Thank you for the flowers. They make the place feel alive." Or, "The coffee this morning was perfect. I appreciate it." Natalia would find these notes and tuck them into her pocket, reading them again in the privacy of her room. No employer had ever thanked her before. Gratitude was not part of the transaction she was used to. She began leaving small gestures in return. His favorite newspaper folded neatly by his breakfast plate. Fresh mint in his water glass, because she had noticed he preferred it. A book he had been searching for, found and placed on his desk. These tiny acts of attention spoke louder than words. The evening, everything changed. It was a Friday evening when Vincent made a decision that would alter everything. He had spent the day thinking about Natalia's sister, about the surgery she needed, about the weight Natalia carried alone. That evening, he found Natalia in the kitchen preparing dinner for herself, something simple with rice and beans. "May I join you?" Vincent asked from the doorway. Natalia turned, surprised. "Sir, I can prepare something else for you. Something better." "No," he said, pulling out a chair at the small kitchen table. "What you are making looks good." "May I share it with you?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. This was crossing a line they both understood. Employers did not eat with housekeepers. Billionaires did not share meals with staff. But Vincent was tired of rules that kept people apart. They ate in comfortable silence at first. Then Vincent spoke. "Tell me about your sister. Carmen, right?" Natalia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "How do you know her name?" "You talk to your family on video calls sometimes. I hear you laughing with them." "It is the only time I hear you really laugh." He paused. "Tell me about her." The story unfolds. Natalia set down her fork, her eyes distant with memory. "Carmen is 14. When she was little, she fell from a tree trying to pick mangoes for our grandmother. The doctors in our town did not have the right equipment. Her leg healed wrong. She walks with pain every day, but she never complains. She wants to be a dancer." Vincent listened, and something inside him broke open. "The surgery would help her?" "Yes. The doctors say she could walk normally. Maybe even dance," Natalia's voice caught. "I have been saving for 2 years. I am almost there. 3 more months, maybe 4. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that surprised them both. "What if you did not have to wait?" Natalia looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" I mean, what if I paid for the surgery? What if Carmen could have it next month? The offer hung in the air like something fragile. Natalia's eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head firmly. No, Mr. Sterling, I cannot accept that. Why not? Because then I would owe you everything. Because charity changes things. Because I need to do this myself. The truth comes out. Vincent leaned forward, his voice gentle but intense. It would not be charity, Natalia. It would be me trying to be a better human being. Do you know what I realized these past few weeks? I have spent my whole life accumulating money I do not need while people like you sacrifice everything for the people they love. You make me want to be different. You make me want to matter. Natalia wiped her eyes. You do matter. You employ people. You create things. I create algorithms and profit margins. You create hope. You hold your family together from thousands of miles away. That matters more than anything I have ever built. He reached across the table but did not touch her, respecting the space between them. Let me help. Not because you owe me, but because knowing you has changed me. Please. The tears fell freely now. Natalia had spent so long being strong, being invisible, carrying everything alone. The offer was overwhelming, terrifying, and deeply moving all at once. Why? She whispered. Why do you care? Vincent smiled sadly. Because that night when I saw you, I also saw myself clearly for the first time in years. I saw how empty my life had become, how disconnected I was from anything real. You were terrified and I was ashamed, but that shame woke something up inside me, something I thought I had lost forever. The confession. What did it wake up? Natalia asked softly. Vincent met her eyes. The ability to care about someone other than myself. The ability to see beauty not in things I own, but in people who struggle and survive and still find reasons to hum while they work. He paused, his next words careful but honest. You make me want to be the kind of man who deserves to know someone like you. The confession settled between them like the first snow, gentle and transforming. Natalia understood what he was saying without him speaking it plainly. This was not about employer and employee anymore. This was about two lonely people who had accidentally found each other in a moment of vulnerability. I am afraid, Natalia admitted. Afraid that if I accept your help, everything will change. Afraid that I will lose myself. Afraid that this kindness is temporary. I am afraid too, Vincent said. Afraid that I will fail you. Afraid that I do not know how to do this. I have spent so long being closed off that I do not know how to be open, but I want to try. With you, I want to try. The decision. Natalia took a deep breath. If you help my sister, I will pay you back. Every dollar. It may take years, but I will do it. Vincent shook his head. No conditions, no debts. Just one person helping another because it is the right thing to do. They sat in silence, the kitchen warm with evening light. Finally, Natalia nodded. Okay, thank you. I do not have words big enough for this gratitude. You do not need words, Vincent said softly. Just stay. Keep humming those songs. Keep making this place feel like a home instead of a museum. That is enough. The new beginning. Over the following weeks, Carmen's surgery was scheduled at one of the best hospitals in Honduras. Vincent arranged for Natalia to fly home to be with her sister, paid for 2 weeks of leave, and ensured her mother had help during the recovery. When Natalia protested, he simply said, Family matters most. Go be with yours. When Natalia returned to Chicago, something between them had fundamentally changed. The power imbalance had not disappeared, but it had transformed into something else. Mutual respect, genuine care, the beginning of something neither could name but both felt. Vincent found himself sharing dinners with her regularly. They talked about everything, his lonely childhood, her dreams of becoming a teacher, his failed relationships, her hopes for her family's future. The conversations filled the empty spaces in both their lives. One evening, as they stood together watching the Chicago skyline, Vincent said quietly, I have been thinking. About what? Natalia asked. About how you should not be my housekeeper anymore. Her heart dropped. You want me to leave? No, he said quickly, turning to face her. I want you to go back to school. Study to become a teacher like you dreamed. I will pay for it. And I want you to stay here, not as an employee, but as someone who belongs in this home. Someone who makes it better just by being in it. The promise. Natalia's eyes widened. Vincent, that is too much. It is not enough, he replied. You have given me something I thought I had lost forever. Hope, connection, a reason to be better. Let me give you a chance at your dreams. No strings attached, just two people who found each other when they both needed saving. She looked at him. This complicated man who had accidentally walked into her room and somehow walked into her life. You saved me? She said softly. No, Vincent replied, his voice thick with emotion. You saved me. You reminded me what it means to be human. They stood close, the city lights spreading below them like a galaxy of possibilities. Natalia reached out and took his hand. It was the first time she had touched him voluntarily, without fear or hesitation. Thank you, she whispered. For seeing me, for caring, for giving me hope when I had forgotten what it felt like. Vincent squeezed her hand gently. Thank you for teaching me that the best things in life cannot be bought or planned. They happen accidentally in moments we are not prepared for. You were the best accident of my life. The future unfolds months later. Carmen sent a video from Honduras. She was dancing, spinning in circles with joy, her legs strong and healthy. Natalia watched it with tears streaming down her face while Vincent sat beside her, sharing her happiness. She is beautiful, Vincent said, like her sister. Natalia looked at him, and in her eyes he saw something he had been hoping for. Not gratitude, not obligation, but genuine affection. Maybe even the beginning of love. What happens now? She asked. Vincent smiled. Now we figure it out together. You study, chase your dreams. I learn how to be a person instead of a machine. We build something real, something that matters. And if people judge us? Natalia asked. A billionaire and his former housekeeper? Let them judge, Vincent said firmly. I have spent my whole life worrying about what people think. I am done with that. All I care about is that when I look at you, I see home. Do you feel the same? Natalia smiled through her tears. Yes, when I look at you, I see the man who gave me back my hope. Who made me believe in kindness again. Who taught me that not all powerful men are cruel. Yes, I feel the same. They held each other as the sun set over Chicago, two people from different worlds who had found common ground in vulnerability and courage. The future was uncertain, the path ahead complicated. But they would walk it together, no longer separated by walls of circumstance and fear. In the end, it was not wealth that transformed their lives. It was something simpler and infinitely more valuable. It was choosing to see each other, to care, to be brave enough to cross the distance between two hearts. And that made all the difference.